Balance isn't about standing still. It's not about splitting time perfectly between work and life. That's a myth. Real balance is momentum. It's knowing when to lean in, when to step back, and how to stay in control when everything is moving fast. Brian Manning built his success by rejecting the outdated idea of balance and embracing something better, alignment. The ability to go all in on big goals without losing what matters most. This is Balance in Motion, a new way of thinking, a new way of living. Because the people who achieve the most aren't looking for balance. They're mastering the flow. Let's get into it.
Welcome to Balance in Motion. This is our first podcast. I'm ecstatic to be here. I've been wanting to do this for a really, really long time. I thought for the first one, just a little introduction. We talk about who I am, what's important to me, what does balance in motion really mean, and what's the point of this podcast? Who are we looking to interview? What do we want to learn? What do we want to accomplish? I'm ecstatic. Let's get right to it. So first thing is, who am I, right? Who am I? What's my backstory? Where did I grow up? What really shaped me? What led me to be here today? So my name's Brian Manning. I've been a mortgage lender for the last 27 years. I grew up in South Florida. I moved to Colorado 14 years ago. Growing up in South Florida, probably I would say just a very interesting place to grow up. South Florida to me is kind of like the Wild West. I went to 3 different high schools, and think about going to school in South Florida, especially compared to Colorado. There's just such diversity. The people that you meet are just phenomenal and interesting and fun. And I just had such a great time growing up there. What really led me to be here today, I went through so many different things. I guess if we go back to my backstory a little bit, I feel like I've always been an entrepreneur. I remember early high school, possibly 9th grade, when I was at Costco with my parents. I did the math on a box of blow pops, and I figured out that if I bought a box of blow pops and I sold them at 25 cents a piece, that I could actually make some money. So I made a deal with my parents. I cut the yard, part of my allowance, earned some money from cutting the grass because we grew up on an acre of land, kind of like an orange grove, and earned that money. Then I convinced them to let me go to Costco, buy a box of blow pops, and then from there, I started selling them at school. And first taste I ever really had right there of what making money was like. Then I was approaching the age of 16. I was probably like 15. My dad at the time had a 1984 GMC pickup truck. This is the time in South Florida and Miami where like lowrider trucks were just everything. And I remember looking at the truck I was going to get and these trucks that were going around town and just thinking that it would be amazing to slam this truck down to the ground, make it low, speakers, whatever. And I realized at that time I didn't have any money to do the work. So I got a magazine at the store, and I remember going through the magazine, kind of creating like a price list of what it would cost to do the work that I wanted to this truck. Again, realizing I didn't have enough money. At that point in time, I convinced my parents to let me use the lawn equipment to go around to the neighbors' houses and really establish and open my own lawn care business. I think I was at the age of 15 at that time. So for me, I've always really been kind of an entrepreneur and really wanting to grow a business from a very young age. Growing up in Florida, I was very much into scuba diving. Being by the water is just something I absolutely loved. So I got into the scuba diving business, got into the scuba diving travel business. That was a great place to spend some time. But unfortunately, travel agencies were kind of moving off to the wayside because the internet was coming in. And at that point in time, they really just weren't needed. And I got lucky enough to meet 2 realtors that had a mortgage business that they were just opening. It was called the Home Loan Store. I asked them if I could work with them. I have no idea why. They said yes. I started working with them 27 years ago. That's history in the mortgage business. Really, what shaped me to be who I am today and where I am today, I feel like I've always just been a black sheep. I've always just kind of been the outcast. I've always really led my own way. I've never really stayed with the masses, going all the way back to my first blow pop business and really just kind of thinking about how I move forward from there. I've always just kind of been the fish that swam in my own river. And I feel like being an entrepreneur, just really recognizing that I just think that the balance is impossible to achieve. Looking all the way back in life, I've kind of just always been that person that's just trying trying to find my way. How I got into the mortgage business. So at the time, my girlfriend worked at a Remax in Motion. There was two top producers in there, Evan Bronstein and Jerry Charles. They were going to open up their own mortgage company. She told me about it. I just called them randomly. I introduced myself. I asked them if I could come work for them. I have no idea why. At the time, I had long hair, a goatee. They must have seen something in me. They hired me, got my mortgage license. At the time, it was only 2.5 days. It was half day Friday, all day Saturday, all day Sunday. Next thing I know, I was licensed doing loans, and off we went. And everything's just kind of been history ever since then. What do I do for my clients that's different than every other lender out there? So in my 27 years of doing this, something I realized a long time ago was that this entire industry lacks a very thorough pre-approval process. And it doesn't sound like a lot, but 14 years ago, we committed to just having the most bomb-proof, top-notch pre-approval process. So for us, pre-approval means we're on the phone with the client, completing their application over the phone, gathering their documents, getting them reviewed within 4 to 6 hours, having a consultation with them, and running through the numbers. So I would say what's primarily different for us is going to be our 4 pillars of value. So our 4 pillars of value means that we work with high producing realtors, and our 4 pillars of value wraps their sales cycle from beginning to end to help increase sales, productivity, and efficiency, starting with pillar number 1, which is our pre-approval process. It operates 7 days a week from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. We gather all of our documents. We leave no stone unturned so the client and the realtor always know exactly where they stand. Pillar number 2 is our offer process. So our 7 elements of structuring a win and offer help our clients and our agents always win at the highest level possible, whether you're competing against a cash buyer, whether you want to get the lowest price possible, whether you want to get seller credits to buy the interest rate down, closing cost credits, etc. Our offer process is here to help you win. Pillar number 3, our service advantage. So service advantage means that our rates and fees are always going to be at or lower than any credible competitor out there. So what's a credible competitor to me? Chase, Wells, Bank of America, anyone that's credible in the marketplace. In addition, we have all the loan programs available, and our process is handled in-house in our office, which makes everything a seamless transaction. Pillar number 4, growing together. So growing together means that we're always putting together new concepts, initiatives, value propositions, luncheons for our agents, so we can help to continue working with our agents, help them elevate their business, so we can help them get to a little bit higher level and close that 1 extra deal per year. So I would say there's a lot of reasons why we're different as a lender, but that's really it. What do most people get wrong about success in the real estate business? I think most people just underestimate the value of marketing, and they underestimate the value of their sphere. I think your CRM and your sphere is everything. What do I mean by that? I met a realtor quite a while ago, long time ago actually. His name was Chris Rattay. He was a crusher. He did really incredible in the Boulder market. And Chris at the time would say, if you gave me $5,000 and you gave me the opportunity to spend that $5,000, and I had the chance to go market a farm area or invest in myself, I'm going to go invest in myself. I'm going to embed myself into an activity where I can meet a lot of people. I'm going to add them into my CRM, and I'm going to market to these people. So for example, he chose rugby. He played a lot of rugby. He became a rugby referee, but he never underestimated what it took to have a successful real estate business. I think a lot of people underestimate how important their sphere of influence is. I think a lot of people underestimate how important marketing is. I think a lot of people underestimate how important it is to constantly stay in contact with the people that you know that you have in your CRM, whether it's newsletters, emails, events, dinner parties. The list really just goes on and on and on. So I talk to some agents right now and I say, well, how's your business? I say, well, I'm not busy. So I'll say, okay, great. How many people do you have in your CRM? They'll, whatever the number is, 1,000. My answer is great. When's the last time you went through and called the 1,000 people and made sure they knew who you were, that you were top of mind, and that they thought about you when it came to real estate? The challenge is most people don't want to put that level of work into it, and they underestimate the level of work that goes into being very successful in our businesses. And because of that, they really struggle. Why do I think balance is bullshit? I truly think that really balance is bullshit. I've talked about this in the past. This is actually going to be the whole premise of our podcast. That's why our podcast is called Balance in Motion. I just really think that the pendulum is always shifting. So if we think about a pendulum, it's always going to shift, really strong from one side to another. So for me, whether it's personal life, fun, work, the pendulum is always shifting really hard. So when times are busy, the pendulum shifts up really high on one side. And at that point in time, maybe that's work mode. And at that point in time, I really have, or for anyone, it's almost impossible to have a lot of fun and to have pleasure mode right there. Then you ease off the throttle on the work side. Now the pendulum shifts all the way over to the other side. Now it's evening, weekend, vacation, wherever your pendulum shifts, wherever it's going to be. Now you're likely going to be full on 100% with your family on vacation, whoever you're electing to spend time with. And I truly think that this pendulum really shifts all back and forth, back and forth. So let's just talk about mortgage lending, for example. I would say our businesses, especially here in Colorado, are cyclical. What do I mean by that? January of every year, like January 2nd, we hit the ground running. Our phone starts ringing right away for new clients getting pre-approved. So January is actually a relatively busy month for us year in and year out, over and over and over. February gets quiet because it's the peak of winter. Everyone that came out of the New Year's resolution that wants to buy a house, they're pre-approved. So February is a good time for us to take a little bit of a break if we want to. And then moving into March, now we have spring home buying season. So March, April, May, June, July really are going to be some of our peak months. My pendulum is shifting so hard into work right there that there's not a lot of time for free time. Sometimes I'm even working 7 days a week to keep up with the business that's coming in. August quiets down. A lot of people go on vacation and they travel. So now my pendulum's going to shift back to we'll call it the freedom side, right? And go out there and have some more fun personally. September is going to kick it up a notch again. Now we're going to go September, October, November, and that's going to be full on work mode. And then it's going to quiet down again around Thanksgiving. And then we're going to go on vacation sometime between Thanksgiving and New Year's. So I truly think the balance is just bullshit because there's no way that, for example, the way that I work, the way that we thrive in our market, that I could be all out serving our clients March, April, May, June, July, and really have a lot of time for family, fun, vacations, etc. But there are lulls that we get in there. So what I'm trying to figure out on this podcast and what I want to do with interviewing people, whether it's entrepreneurs, leaders in the marketplace, mortgage lenders, realtors, musicians, anyone that's successful, what I want to figure out is not what their success looks like, because it's easy for us to see what success looks like, and success does leave its clues. What I want to figure out is when we really peel back this onion, what did they have to go through to get to the success that they're at? And what I mean by that is, if balance is bullshit, what are the struggles they had to go through and figure out in their life, whether it was personally, in a relationship, in a marriage, whatever it was, to really go through and figure out when the pendulum is shifting, how do you hold everything together? And how do you continue moving the needle forward, whether it's personally, with your family, in your career, whatever it would be. And I truly think it's hard. If you look at social media, the facade of the bullshit is there. Everyone on social media has the most perfect life. And I'm just going to call bullshit. That's not the case. I just truly think that everyone is struggling and holding it all together. I think everybody is struggling because they're trying to find this perfect balance, which just doesn't exist. It's not obtainable to me. But if we can find flow, and we can find flow in the movement that we're kind of figuring out our way through life, whether it's being dedicated into work, for example, in our spring market, or whether it's taking time off with our families in December, what is the flow that really meets our needs? And for what I'm starting to learn is that everybody has their different flow. Everyone's going to be different. Some people would be nauseous to live the life that I do and work the way that I work, and that's okay. I'm not trying to push my flow onto everyone else. But for us, since it's all really very personal, what is the flow that we want to find inside of ourselves that meets our needs, that meets our family's needs, that really helps us continue to move the needle in life in an area that creates success and happiness? And I truly feel like if we can find flow, and we find a flow that meets our needs, and we find the flow that meets of our family's needs, behind that is happiness. And I think if we boil it all down, what we're really trying to figure out is how do we achieve happiness on a consistent basis? And I just think that balance is so hard to do, and it's impossible to have perfect balance in your life. But if we can acknowledge that the pendulum is constantly shifting and our family is okay with that, and we have really good and strong communication, and we can acknowledge that the flow is going to take us through some peaks and valleys, and what does that look like and how does it create happiness? So the purpose of my podcast is I want to start learning from other people What does their balance and motion look like, since it's never going to be perfect? And how are they achieving happiness? And when they're dealing with careers, high producing other people on their team, maybe they're traveling a lot, whatever it is, how do you find the flow that really is going to work for them? I feel like the biggest struggles I've faced in my career is always striving for perfection. And what do I mean by that? So for me, the realtor is our client. So we're always trying to figure out, how do we serve our realtor needs? And one of the biggest struggles I've ever had is wrapping my mind around serving a realtor's needs and then making a mistake, because we all make mistakes. And when we make a mistake, how do we handle it and how do we address it? What do I mean by that? So for me, I feel like one of the bigger struggles we have is I'm always putting pressure on our team to continue performing at the highest level possible. The reason why I do that is because I need to make sure that we're keeping our experience elevated compared to everybody else that's out there. So one of the struggles that we have is we're constantly putting pressure on ourselves to continue to perform over and over and over. And the reality is it's tough and we make mistakes. Nobody is perfect. And the mortgage industry and the real estate industry are both really tough spaces to operate in. So one of the struggles that we've had over and over and over is just myself and our team dealing with the pressure of always elevating to the next level to really get to the highest level of performance possible, which is almost like just kind of chasing this carrot over and over and over. We don't struggle as much with public speaking, finding business, meeting with agents, the list goes on and on and on. I think our biggest struggle right now is just the pressure that we face to always perform at the highest level possible. And probably our biggest struggle in there is keeping our team uplifted and motivated so that they can feel really good about the process as well, because everybody in our team is amazing and everybody's striving to deliver a phenomenal level of service, but it is a struggle to keep everybody motivated all the time. So the piece of advice I give to any realtor out there that's growing their business is you need a CRM. I don't care what it is. It could be anything from Salesforce to whatever your company offers to an Excel spreadsheet. And you have to have everybody you know in that CRM for marketing. And then you have to be willing to contact these people on a consistent basis, do events, get in front of people, have dinner parties. And I think Tim Brahim from Lone Toolbox a long time ago said, the person with the most friends wins. Think about that. The person with the most friends wins. So all we're trying to figure out in our space is, how do we make more friends? If you're a realtor, you're trying to figure out, how do we make more friends? The more friends you have, the more friends that know who you are, that know what you do, chances are your business is going to go from there. I want this podcast to be a platform that people can come to recognize that life is hard as shit, and we're all fighting and we're all struggling and we're all trying to figure out, how do we find our own little space in this world, and how do we find our own little piece of happiness, and learning from other people that are also highly successful at what they do, that they're struggling as well. I think if we just look at the world and the way it presents itself right now, I'm not talking mass media, but if we just look at the world, social media, everything comes across as perfect. And the truth is, that's wrong. Nothing, it's not perfect. There's just no way it's all perfect all the time. So I really want to peel back the layers in that onion with people and find out, if we think that balance is really not that obtainable or achievable, what are they doing in their life to balance or find their flow with that pendulum shifting back and forth? And how do they make that work for themselves, for their family, for their kids or their children if they have them? And how do they really make it kind of fit into the flow of what's creating their happiness? So I'm really hoping to peel back the onion there, and we'll see what happens. Something about me that most people would not expect is that I hated school growing up. I actually don't even know how I passed high school. I think they just let me out because they just got so sick of seeing me. I was a horrible student. For me, math made no sense, right? When you look at doing algebra, you put letters in a math equation, I'm lost immediately. Still to this day, algebra, all those math, algebra, geometry, trig, whatever it is, none of it makes sense to me. So growing up, I was an absolute horrible student. I didn't do great in elementary school. My handwriting was horrible. I was forever failing handwriting. And that's when we had cursive and writing classes. Reading was okay, but my mind couldn't hold the place and the space of reading. So that never went well for me. I didn't like math, like I've already said, and I really just plain out disliked school. The more I could skip school and be out on my own, kind of free in my way, the better I was and the more excited I felt. So something that most people wouldn't expect about me is that I was a horrible student. And then, of course, after that, went to college for, I would say, 6 months. College was absolutely not for me. I couldn't stand going to school. All I could think about when I was in college was just getting out, starting my own business, figuring life out on my own, and trying to figure out what I was going to do next. And going to college, it was just this restraint that I just couldn't deal with. It wasn't for me. So I think it's funny that now I'm probably one of the most strongest learners, academic people you ever met. When I find a subject or something I want to learn about, I'm reading books, I'm studying. Now that I've kind of really focused my attention on more of what I want to do and passions and areas that I love, my learning is at the highest level it's ever been. I'm super focused on learning all the time right now. But if you go back to elementary school, middle school, high school, I didn't have many friends. I was definitely the loner, and I just hated school at that time. So that is our first podcast. I just wanted to share with everybody a little bit about myself, where we're going to go with this podcast, what we're trying to achieve. I'm super excited. I hope that some of you want to come along for the ride to learn at what we're doing. If you have anyone that you think would be a good fit for our podcast, that you know works really hard, they strive for the best, they're successful at what they do, whatever that level of success is, it doesn't have to be just monetary. And you think someone that you know would be a good fit for the podcast, and they're willing to share, they really talk about the real person of who they are, the struggles that they've gone through, and what they've really done to kind of create this flow in their life, please let me know. Message me. I love to talk with them and have them on here. Balance in Motion, episode 1, check.